What if your life started not with warmth and care, but with metal trays, conveyor belts, and cold efficiency for billions of chickens in factory farms? This is reality. Every second of their lives is carefully calculated, not for their benefit, but for maximum profit. From birth to the slaughterhouse, their lives are a haunting example of how efficiency can strip away humanity. And the scariest part, we're all connected to this system, whether we realize it or not. Stick around as we uncover why. Being born a chicken in factory farming is one of the worst fates imaginable. Factory farming isn't just a farming method, it's an industrialized system. It's all about producing the maximum number of animals in the smallest amount of space, at the lowest cost. On paper, it sounds efficient, but for the animals? It's a living nightmare. Globally, over 50 billion chickens are raised each year in factory farms. To these systems, they're not living, breathing beings, they're just units of production. Eggs? Meat? That's all they're valued for. And behind those neatly packed supermarket trays lies a process most of us would rather not think about. A factory-farmed chicken's life begins in a sterile, mechanical hatchery. Eggs are incubated in rows upon rows of metal trays, devoid of any motherly warmth. Once they hatch, the chicks are sorted by gender. For male chicks in the egg industry, their fate is immediate. They're deemed useless. They won't grow fast enough for meat, and they can't lay eggs. The solution? They're either ground alive or suffocated, a brutal reality for millions of chicks every single day. Females aren't spared either. They're sent down the conveyor belt to begin a short, miserable life. No chirping mother, no fluffy nests, just machines and cold hands. Over decades, chickens have been bred to grow faster and larger than nature ever intended. In just 6 weeks, a factory-farmed chicken can reach slaughter weight. For context, in the 1950s, this took nearly 4 months. But there's a cost. Their bodies can't keep up. Many suffer from heart failure, collapsed legs, or deformed bones because their skeletons simply can't support their massive size. Imagine growing so fast that your own body becomes your biggest enemy. For these chickens, that's not an exaggeration, it's their reality. Inside the barns, thousands of chickens are crammed together in filthy, poorly ventilated spaces. The air reeks of ammonia from their waste, which burns their skin and damages their lungs. There's no natural sunlight, only artificial lighting designed to maximize growth. The overcrowding is so extreme that many chickens can barely move, let alone spread their wings. And the stress? It's constant. Pecking, fighting, and injuries are daily occurrences. To manage this overcrowded chaos, factory farms rely on routine procedures. For example, chicks often have their beaks clipped, without pain relief, to prevent them from injuring each other in such tight spaces. Vaccinations and antibiotics are pumped into them, not for their health, but to keep diseases from wiping out the entire flock. Every step prioritizes efficiency over the chicken's well-being. The result? A system where suffering is the norm, not the exception. When their 6 weeks are up, the chickens are packed into crates and transported to slaughterhouses. The journey is brutal: hours without food or water, in extreme heat or cold. At the slaughterhouse, the process is swift and mechanical. Chickens are shackled upside down, stunned, sometimes ineffectively, and then slaughtered. For many, the stunning doesn't work, and they endure the process fully conscious. Factory farming isn't just a problem for the animals trapped in its ruthless system. Its consequences ripple far beyond the boundaries of barns and slaughterhouses, impacting the environment, human health, and the moral fabric of society itself. Let's break this down into its far-reaching effects, so you understand why this issue deserves your attention, and why it affects every one of us. 1. Environmental catastrophe. The environmental toll of factory farming is immense, contributing significantly to some of the most pressing ecological challenges of our time. First, there's deforestation. To make space for industrial-scale animal farms and grow feed crops like soy and corn, massive tracts of forests are cleared. The Amazon rainforest, often called the lungs of the earth, is a prime example. Entire ecosystems are destroyed to make way for monoculture plantations, pushing countless species to the brink of extinction. Then there are greenhouse gas emissions. Did you know that animal agriculture is responsible for about 14.5% of global greenhouse gas emissions? That's more than the entire transportation sector combined. Methane, a gas 25 times more potent than CO2 at trapping heat in the atmosphere, is released in huge quantities by livestock, especially cows. While chickens don't produce as much methane, the sheer scale of factory farming ensures their contribution isn't negligible. Water pollution is another major concern. Waste from factory farms often ends up in nearby rivers and streams, contaminating drinking water and killing aquatic life. The overuse of fertilizers and pesticides to grow feed crops further exacerbates the problem, leading to dead zones in oceans where no life can survive. For instance, the Gulf of Mexico's dead zone is largely fueled by runoff from industrial farming in the U.S. And let's not forget water consumption. Producing meat is incredibly water-intensive. To produce just 1 kilogram of chicken meat, it takes approximately 4,300 liters of water, a staggering figure when you consider the billions of chickens raised annually. 2. Human health risks. Factory farming poses serious threats to human health, both directly and indirectly. The overuse of antibiotics in animal agriculture is perhaps the most alarming. To keep animals alive in overcrowded, unsanitary conditions, factory farms routinely administer antibiotics, not just to treat illnesses, but as a preventive measure and growth enhancer. This practice has led to the rise of antibiotic-resistant bacteria, or superbugs, which can make infections in humans harder, if not impossible, to treat. According to the World Health Organization, antimicrobial resistance is one of the top 10 global public health threats. Another health concern is foodborne illness. Factory farms, with their cramped and unhygienic conditions, are breeding grounds for pathogens like Salmonella and E. coli. These bacteria can easily make their way into the food supply, causing outbreaks that sicken millions each year. And let's not forget about avian flu, which has been linked to the intensive farming of poultry. The close confinement of thousands of birds creates a perfect storm for the virus to mutate and spread, increasing the risk of a pandemic. Moreover, the heavy use of pesticides and fertilizers in growing animal feed introduces harmful chemicals into our water and soil, which can eventually find their way into our bodies. Long-term exposure to these chemicals has been linked to serious health issues, including cancer and developmental disorders. 3. Ethical implications. From an ethical standpoint, factory farming forces us to confront some uncomfortable truths. At its core, it treats living beings as mere commodities, reducing their lives to a series of calculations. How quickly can they grow? How much space do they need to survive? How many can fit into a single barn? Chickens, for instance, are highly social animals with complex behaviors. In the wild or on a free-range farm, they form hierarchies, communicate with each other, and even show empathy. But in a factory farm, these behaviors are suppressed. They live their entire lives in overcrowded conditions, often unable to even stretch their wings. The lack of stimulation leads to severe stress, manifesting in pecking and other aggressive behaviors, problems the industry solves by cutting off the tips of their beaks. By supporting this system, we're complicit in a level of cruelty that most of us would find abhorrent if we witnessed it firsthand. It challenges us to ask, what does it say about us as a society that we allow this to continue? If the price of cheap meat is widespread suffering, is it really worth it? The power of change lies in our hands, in the choices we make every day. Each time we decide what to eat, we're casting a vote for the kind of world we want to live in. Do we want a world that prioritizes efficiency at the cost of cruelty and destruction? Or do we want a world where compassion and sustainability take center stage? Here's a question to leave you with. If you had to live the life of a factory-farmed chicken for even one day, would you still support this system? Think about it. Your choices have the power to create a ripple effect, one that can challenge the status quo and pave the way for a kinder, more sustainable future.